this is Doug, and the doors are wide open at the Full Earth Workshop. Today, it's Dragula again, episode 4. We're going to work on this chassis, see how far we can get. We still have one view missing from our sketch, and let's take care of that right now. We have to do a side view to see how much of a clearance is needed for this chassis. So, give me 60 seconds and we'll finish. Oh yeah, that was fun. Got to let the pencil cool down for a minute, and we'll work on this. I found this on eBay for a very cheap price. It's an old Revell monogram kit, which is for a 283 V8 engine. This is an old 57 Chevy engine that was built in the version of Dragula that we are building. Now, one of the problems with this kit, the tooling is so old that, well, it just doesn't go together very well, so we're going to have to do quite a few mods to it. Another problem is it's all covered with a thick layer of this chrome, and I'm telling you, it looks like somebody chewed on a big wad of tinfoil. I think what we'll have to do is probably paint over quite a bit of this chrome. We're going to use some of that old-fashioned tester's enamel that actually covers it pretty well. You know, it's just difficult, even finding the parts on something that is so brightly colored. It's so high contrast, it's hard to pick out the details on the different parts. Even finding the numbers is difficult. So we finally found some parts of the block. I'm using the upper section because that's the only part that's really going to be seen on Dragula. I'm not using glue for styrene here because, well, you'd have to scrape all of this chrome off to make it really stick. I'm using super glue, cyanoacrylate here, to stick everything pretty nicely. Nicely is a very loose term here because nothing fits. What I'm ending up doing is just sanding off some of the tabs and some of the holes and just force fitting these things. I wish this kit had been available without all this chrome plating because what a pain. But you can see kind of what people had to go through back in the 60s when we were building these models. They really weren't very accurate to start with, and then you take about 30 years of wear on the molding tools, and they are really, really a mess. But hey, it's at least a starting point for us. You can see that I've used a little square of styrene to mount everything to, and what we're going to do is we're going to mount this thing underneath the casket. It'll just be poking up out of the porthole and it'll look awesome. Well, I've been waiting for this to arrive. Bought this from Amazon for about $12 to $15. This is a ceramic pin board with pins, which is used for electronics when you do the soldering, but it's also perfect for building slot car chassis and doing other brass work because it holds things in place. A little known fact is when you're using a blazer torch, there actually is a little thrust out the front that can jolt the part while you're trying to solder. So locking it down makes your soldering a lot more stress-free, and it makes sure that all of your soldering joints are absolutely perfect. If you remember, the chassis that we're working on here was purchased from eBay. It was partially completed, and that's why we're making adjustments to it right now. Of course, if we were starting from the beginning, we would have cut these tubes the exact right size before. But to try to save a little money, I made sure that I bought something that had a bunch of pieces with it, so it ends up being a lot cheaper in the long run. It's been known for a long time that when you're buying a hot rod, you look for something that's already built instead of building your own because you can buy it a lot cheaper than it costs to build it. Well, that's kind of the way we are with vintage slot cars because these individual parts, if you buy them separately, they're very expensive. As you know, I work with brass quite a bit in my modeling, and I can't stress enough how important it is to have your brass perfectly clean before you go to solder, and then to use flux, because even with your polished brass, it sometimes can be very difficult to get the solder to stick. Usually I will cut off a little piece of solder and just place it within the flux and then heat them both together. And by capillary action, the solder flows right into the seam. Okay, your next hobby tools are located probably in your sock drawer. That's a pile of change. What I normally do is I will make sure that my measurements are correct, make a little notation with a permanent marker, and then by using a stack of pennies, I make sure that all of the clearances are correct with the tires in place, and then I fasten these brass parts down with pins, and we are ready to solder. Now as I thread on this engine mounting plate, it's a little tricky first to get it to go onto these little rods, but it is not mounted the way you think. It's mounted perpendicular to the base rather than perpendicular to the rods. And that's important because when we mount on this motor, you're going to see the clearance is the same all the way across from the front tires to the rear tires. Well, remember in Back to the Future, you needed a flux capacitor to go into the past. Well, you need to get a whole lot of flux for us to go into the future. If you noticed earlier, I'm just using a rather generic solder. This is electrical solder that has a rosin core. But if you're doing a lot of soldering on a single part, sometimes you have problems with desoldering the previous work as you work on a new joint. And the way you get around that is you start to collect solders that have different melt temperatures. And I'm talking silver solder is probably the kingpin. It takes a lot of heat to get that to move. So you start out with something like a silver solder, and then you move progressively to solders that have lower and lower and lower melt temperatures. That way you can keep everything all in place and you can finish your project. All right, so far so good. Now we're going to check against the drawing to see if we have the proper lengths. And you can see, yeah, we're pretty good on the bottom clearance of this chassis because we've kind of tilted that motor mounting. Now we're going to trim off these rods because this is considerably shorter than the original chassis that we purchased. And as you can see, because of the flux and all of the heat, we got a lot of cleanup to do on this chassis. We can't just keep it this way. We got to make sure that brass is nice and polished up. And to do that, we're going to use a combination of some modeling files, kind of aggressive sandpaper, then less aggressive sandpaper, and then finally the 4/0 steel wool. I gotta say, I'm pretty jazzed about the way this front end is gonna look on this slot car. Remember, this was a cast front end for 1/24 models that we've kind of modified to be able to work with a slot car. Remember, Dragula has this very elaborate hot rod front end that we gotta make sure looks real. And this is what I've seen that has been missing from every Dragula slot car that I've seen. They don't have the front end correct. And because this front suspension member is cast from white metal, I think it's going to hold up a bit better than it would out of plastic. In the last episode, I was thinking out loud about, well, should I use an Ackerman steering mechanism on this slot car? I've kind of decided against that for a few reasons. First reason is, well, it's a dragster, right? Going straight ahead. The second was, I don't really have the room to be able to do it correctly. And the third reason, we're going to be putting the guide flag and brushes on a wheelie bar. All right. The apple pie is getting cooked, and very soon we'll be putting it on the sill to let it cool. Well, if this is your kind of content, please give us a like, make sure you subscribe. We will catch you next time on the Full Earth Workshop.